Good morning and welcome to the Fire in the Belly of the Boardroom Talks. And today we have the outstanding Pat Slatter here joining us to talk about a few more little things on the Mature Reflection series. So we've picked a nice little one for today: the I, the me, and the we. And yeah, I think it's probably down to language, but I know Pat, you'd be very careful with language. So good morning, and yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, good morning. You said a little topic. I don't think this is a little topic at all, actually. Um, and it's a type of topic that I guess can throw up a lot of debates in ways. It can also create a bit of confusion at times from people, and and again, it's going to have different interpretations. People have their own interpretation of what things mean, and that's okay, and I respect that. And again, like I'm going to share here this morning, my interpretation of certain things based on experience I've had from dealing with people, and and again, everything I share is just my opinion, and that's all it is. And and everybody else should look at their own opinions and maybe question it and think a little bit deeper. And I guess what we're looking to do here is to help people think a little bit deeper, and maybe get a better understanding of life and what it is they want and how things actually work out in life and how things turn up that you want as well. So yeah, so the I, me, and the we is a very interesting topic for sure. So we can elaborate, we can talk a little bit about it, and maybe open up some people's minds and think about how they make use of the words. So I'm going to talk a little about making use of the words as well, and how it actually affects people subconsciously. So, like you said, Peter, I consciously choose words at times, right? To the point that it happens almost naturally at times. And that doesn't mean I do it perfectly every single time, but I am very conscious of the words I, we, and me, by the way, very conscious of them. And I'm very conscious of how they can be interpreted either on a negative or a positive. So, and I'm also very conscious of how people use them. I pay attention to how people use them, and how it can have a really a really big impact, either uh, again positively or negatively, when it comes to emotion and intelligence. And and I think there are words that are used very flippantly at times, and and I think some people are not conscious of what it is they're attracting into their life by the use of these words. So, you know, yeah, I think we can have a bit of fun this morning, Pete.
I love it. So, I mean, are they all referring to the same thing, but just from different angles? I mean, if you're talking about yourself, I mean, well, is I the purest form, or are they even comparable to each other?
Well, I mean, see, it depends on the context, doesn't it? Really, I mean, if the I is the purest form, even most people tell you I is ego, right? It's egotistical, and so it's a different. It depends on the use, I think, of the words, and how they're interpreted. And again, the me can come across selfish, but can also come across empowering. And the we, well, you know how I feel about we, right? But again, it just depends on the context. I mean, the question that most people really want to know when it comes to this, when we think about it, I believe, is who am I? And I think when people want to know who am I, what they're really trying to discover is how to find themselves. So when we start thinking about who am I, and I've heard this word being used so many times, and you've seen me do this many times, Pete, where I may be in a group of people and I ask them to introduce themselves. And the majority of people I've met who introduce themselves, they usually stand up and they tell me their name, and then they go on and they proceed to tell me what they do for a living. I am, and then they start telling me what they do for a living. And the reality is, you are not what you do for a living. But most people, when they introduce themselves and they go, I am, that's what it is. But not only that, the use of the word I am, will it's a very strong statement, by the way. The word I am is a very strong statement. So, when people talk about I am, and they attach a negative connotation to it, and you listen, your mind doesn't understand the difference here. Your mind starts to take it all on, and it starts to believe it to be true. And yeah, and it's really important that we understand how you use these words. And people might be dismissive and think they're not that important. But I can tell you here on my journey, these words were very important, and how I use those words for me personally, for me to reach the levels that I wanted to reach in terms of my own personal self-belief and where I wanted to be. So I mean, so how do you find yourself? You know, maybe you've asked yourself this question, like, who am I really? Am I a father? Am I a husband? Am I a friend? Am I an engineer? Am I a passenger? Am I a patient? Right? And the truth is that you are a father if you have a child, right? You are a husband if you have a wife. You are a passenger if you're on a train or a plane, right? So all of your identities, everything that you believe yourself to be, are usually dependent on something else, right? So then who are you? Are you a father, a husband, or a passenger? Right? We really know you are neither. But as you start paying more attention to what's going on externally, and you start attaching yourself to this, well, I am a father. Okay, you are a father, but is that who you are? Right? You know, I hear people say, I am depressed. Okay, you are depressed, but is that who you are? Is that really who you are? I am anxious. Is that who you really are? So, you know, but by not knowing the question to who am I, what happens is most people keep on creating new identities of themselves. Right? So that, you know, consequently, what happens is they end up going further from their true self. They start identifying more things and they attach the I am to all of these things externally that are going on outside of them. And they create more of a recognition of them based on other things. You know, so if you keep on creating new identities of yourself, then you're moving further away from your true self. And I believe that a lot of suffering in life is because people do not know their true identity. And I've met tens of thousands of people, and I've had this conversation with so many people over time. And when I use the word I in this context, I'm sharing my knowledge based on the experience that I have been blessed to have gotten over the last 26, 27 years, and probably a bit longer than that. If I was, when you go back, even recognizing as a child. But the one thing I seriously have seen happen is the amount of people that I believe are suffering because they don't know who their true identity. They keep telling me they're searching. But I will say this to you, until you realize your true self, you will believe that yourself is just a name that has been given to you. Now we want to get a little bit deeper here. So are you Pete? Or is that just a name that was given to you? Am I Pat? Or is that just a name that was given to me? So are you Pete?
It's just a label, right?
Okay, so it's just a name. But because it was given to us externally, you take ownership of it in ways, right? So you have to say, okay, so who are you? And in reality, in my opinion, you are just simply an eternal soul. Now, I'm not going to get into this because some people have their own beliefs and so forth, but we could talk about infinite past lives, that the soul has been hidden, right? It's been hidden in veils of ignorance, right? And due to this, most people have been unable to experience the true self. And when we talk about being life and being life at a soul level, we've discussed this before, you have to understand that, you know, I think it's Socrates that said that to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. When you know yourself, everything that you do externally becomes so much easier to handle, to manage. When things don't work out in your favor, it becomes so much easier to handle, to manage, because you know yourself. And this takes a little bit of digging deep and a little bit of soul searching for some people. And you know, the skeptics will always argue and fight it, and that's okay. I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong. I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm just going to say what I accepted for me. And it seems to have served me very well, and has served a lot of people. Now, again, I'm very grounded. I like to understand that I have a good understanding of emotional intelligence and what goes on in the world and how people behave and how people feel and how people are communicated to, and of course how I communicate to people and how my communication is received. But I believe there's something more when we talk about going deeper into yourself and into the self and allowing yourself to feel that level of freedom as a soul on this earth, on this world, in this universe, that you're here to deliver something. You're here to be part of something magnificent, and you make that choice. And the choice is that you choose to be magnificent or wonderful or outstanding or excellent, whatever, or you choose life. So when we understand who am I, we got to go move beyond the materialistic stuff. By the way, it's nice to have material stuff too. No problem with that, right? Let's be very clear about that. But we got to move beyond it, because the labels that are given to you are not really who you are. The labels that you recognize externally are not who you are. So when you say I am, the use of the word I am, is a very powerful statement. It's a very powerful statement. And and unfortunately for most people, they have learned the negatives to the use of these words, and then they also like to tell people how they are and how they feel and so forth, right? And not look at the person and who the person truly is. And to me, again, you're an eternal soul. You're here in this world. You're going to make a difference in this world. You're going to have an impact in this world, whether you like it or not. So again, if we think about the I, me, and the we, again, powerful words, they can make or break you, and you may not even realize it. So I want to remind you of this, because we've talked about this many, many times. You are what you think. Maybe we'll touch on this a bit later in the talk again, but you are what you think. And when we start learning how we express different things, how they use the word, like when a person uses the word I, what exactly are they saying? Now, again, it can be ego, but it can also be very empowering. It just completely depends on the context. So if somebody said, I am better than you, well, is that ego or is that empowering? And when somebody says, I am better than you, maybe you believe it, maybe you don't. But either way, it has created a negative connection, right? And it has created negative energy. So, or maybe somebody goes, I am not as good as everyone else. I am not as good as everyone else. I always struggle. I'm always struggling. I'm always trying to find a way. So is that empowering or disempowering? And most people don't believe it if somebody says that. But again, when they do this, it's basically like a judgment that they paste upon themselves based on an external message that they're picking up from outside. Or maybe somebody goes, I can do it alone. Or I can do it alone can be both empowering and disempowering. Because I can do it alone can be seen as stubbornness, right? Or willpower. And here's what often I've noticed, and I can share from me. I mean, today's talk, I guess, Peter, is going to be quite difficult to cover without actually talking about some of my own experiences, right? And when we talk about I can do it alone, I thought that one time too. And you know what? I took this attitude of I can do it alone. I can make it happen. I don't need anybody. If anybody doesn't get me, I don't need them. And that wasn't ego. That was willpower. But I can tell you, when I and let me say this, it got me so far too. And willpower will get you so far. But you got to understand that there's something more. And I can do it alone is sheer willpower. But then there will come a point in your life when you might realize, actually, it's not that I need to do it alone. Maybe I can do it better with some help. And if we choose it, I'm moving to, I can do it better with help. Means you can still do it. So it's empowering, but you're capable of realizing that there may be something more. There may be something out there that can help you, support you, and help you grow faster. And that's moving beyond willpower. And now that help comes in many different forms. In many different forms. It comes from other people. It comes from taking that time to have quiet reflection. Maybe it comes from the books that you read, the things that you listen to. But when it depends on the context of how you use that word I. Now, the other side of that is when we start talking about setting out your statements of intent. Some of the ones that I use is I will consistently tell myself, I am the best version of me right now. I choose to be life. And I would be suggesting to people when you're using that term that that's the way you use it, that you attach it to your statements of intent. And I am the best version of me right now. I also accept that I can get better. I choose to be life. I choose to be outstanding. Now, that's not egotistical, that's empowerment. Now, here's what happens, you see. Sometimes when people use that word, we're back to opinions. And when somebody goes, I am the best I can be, I am the best version of me right now. I choose to be life. I am outstanding. And then somebody goes, no, you're not. I don't believe you are. That's okay. That's got nothing to do with you. You should not allow anybody else step in and change the way you think. Because when you can stand up and say, I am absolutely outstanding, I am the best version of me right now, and I choose life, I choose to be life, that is your truth in that moment. And you don't let anybody step in and change that truth. Because externally, again, you see, it's what's coming from the outside is coming in, and then you start to take it on board.
Does the I speak the truth?
Oh, well, listen, the I is certainly speaks the truth, but it's also an imposter. Because here's what happens. If somebody says, oh yeah, I am the best version of me right now, and somebody questions it to go, well, maybe I could do something better, maybe I won't, or maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. And all of a sudden, the imposter syndrome kicks in, as we hear about. And usually, again, that's got nothing to do with you. Let me say this to you. Those who use that term, imposter syndrome, it has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. That is somebody else's opinion. You are not an imposter. You are a magnificent human being. You are an eternal soul. You are here for a purpose. You're here for a reason. You find that purpose, you find that reason, and you believe in yourself. And when you use your I am statements, think carefully about what it is I am saying. And I wish I could be better is not a positive statement. You got to think about, so the truth is in the I also, of course. But it can also be an imposter. It just depends on what clothes it's wearing. So be careful and think carefully about the words that you're using when you speak. When you use the words I, when you talk about who you are. And again, to use the word I mean, we spoke briefly about this before we come on here. And I see a lot of people in the coaching industry or people who are listening for people, and somebody wants to share something. And maybe, I hear people wanting to share a problem. And then the person who's listening says, I know how you feel. You've got to ask yourself, do you really know how they feel? Because if you were listening, if you were listening intently and compassionately, would you actually use that term, I know how you feel? How could you possibly know? You may have some idea of how they might feel. You may have some understanding of how they might feel, but it's not really well used in that context, because the person doesn't want you to respond to it. I know how you feel. They just want to know that you understand in some way, or that you allow them the opportunity to be listened to. So now, if we go from I to me, sometimes when you use the word me, this can come across as selfish, or it could also come across as a cry for help, but it can also be powerful. It just, again, depends on the context that is used. Like, for example, it's all about me. Give me all that I want. Now, people say, well, yeah, kids say that all the time. They're spoiled little brats, or whatever they might say about them, right? Give me all that I want, or it's all about me. I mean, when that comes in, that's egotistical as well. And the ego comes in, and people start judging people based on the words that they use and are making it all about them. and not many people like that. So, you know, that can be seen as being selfish, and it may not be meant that way. So you got to be very careful on how you translate it. You know, then the other thing, it could be a cry for help. It could be, please help me, or what about me? What about me? What can I do? That could be a cry for help. You know, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with this. So you got to pay attention to how it's being used when people talk about me. And you know, when you say me all the time, you know, you really have to ask yourself: are you thinking in broader terms? Are you moving beyond the selfish part, the ego, maybe again? I don't know, right? Or that little selfish demon that's in most people, right? Everybody experiences it, right? But we have to be very consciously aware of what's going on. Um, and again, or maybe if you were to think of it from a powerful perspective, it could be, I choose to be the best me. I choose to be the best me. And when you make a statement like that, it's not just a simple statement. It's about thinking about everything else that goes on, everything external that's coming in. What are you allowing in order for you to be the best you? So I choose to be the best me. Some people go, who do you think you are? You don't let that in. You take control. You take ownership of who you are. You start getting to know yourself, and you choose to be the best me. Now, you know, the other thing is it can be used for pity. You know, nobody cares about me, right? Nobody does anything for me. I have to do it all. I have to do everything for me on my own, right? I'm going to say this to you. Yeah, we understand that. But if it is to be, it's up to me. If it is the power, you don't give your control to anybody else. You choose. You choose to be the best me. And remind yourself, it is to be, it's up to me. When you make a simple statement like that, 7 words, 7 simple little words, and 1 short sentence, but there's so much that comes with being the best. So much that comes with it. So it's not just a statement, a throwaway statement. And when you say it often, when you understand, if you do it consciously, subconsciously, you start to buy into it and start to believe in it, and you start to become more aware of the other language and the other words and the things that are getting in the way of you being the best you. So that's why these simple little words are so important and so powerful. And I will be encouraging you always to be the best you. And reminding yourself again, if it is to be, it is up to me. So one of the things I use consistently, and I have used for a long time, is I choose to be the best me. And there are times when I may, you know, part of what I've done in the past in my life, I spent a lot of time teaching people conflict resolution. It's part of what I was doing in the security industry. And you know, when I got to look at certain things, you got to go back to being either reactive or proactive. And when most people, by the way, in this world are reactive, and instead of being proactive, so I have to ask myself, if I am reactive, am I being the best me, or am I being proactive? If I'm being proactive, sometimes it means finding a resolution and walking away from something where other people might see it as weakness. And if other people see it as weakness, right? If some people might see you being the best you as a weakness, don't buy into it. You know better. Because we're in a society where everybody, well, not everybody, but most people are reactive. And what happens is most people like to give you their opinion about what you should do. But you got to say no. You know, we've often heard this many, many times that, you know, is to be the better man, right? Walk away sometimes. And there are many different contexts we could put this into when it comes to life. When I think about how can I be the best me? And in my past, when I look back at anything that was going on in my life that didn't work in my favor, because when I say it doesn't work in my favor, at that time, I had to be thinking about me. And I look back and I go, okay, well, how did I contribute to this outcome, either positively or negatively? And this is what I got to think about when I think about me, when I reflect back on certain things. And now I'm grateful that my mature reflection can also be about things in the future. not necessarily all the past. Because I can say, well, how could I contribute? If I was to contribute in my best way of being the best me, how would I contribute? And now I'm left with the choice. Right? Either I be the best me or I don't. It's as simple as that. And if I don't, I could be still serving me, but in a selfish way. And now the other side of that is you will also recognize, I think when I talk about my habits, the main habits that I've created and the ones I've shared with a lot of the guys on video here is the first one is learning to say no. Sometimes being the best me was learning to say no, and other people might see that as selfish. Right? And then they might pick on certain things and they go, well, why not? And you're meant to be a person. If you were going to be the best you would help people. You would do this, you would do this, you would do this. But I'm no different than anybody else. I've only got 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week, and that's not changing for me the same way it's not changing for anybody. I make a choice on how I can be the best me within the time that I have. So I'm going to get you to think, I would like you to think about how could you be the best me in the time that you have. And sometimes you have to make tough decisions. But if you make them consciously, when you choose to be the best me, if you do that consciously, then subconsciously you will recognize the things that frustrate you, but you'll also recognize the things that you feel rewarded for being involved in. You will start recognizing the things that you're passionate about in life. So if you choose to be the best me, and for me, I choose to be the best me, therefore, I will accept all that is good that comes to me as a result of all the good that I am doing in life. Now, here's a mantra I would like you to take on. And I will repeat it is, I will accept all that is good that comes to me as a result of all the good that I am doing in life. So we have the I and the me in there. And it's so important that you accept this. All of the good. Now, we do say, well, if you accept the good, you have to accept the bad also. Well, not really. You can recognize the bad, you can accept that it's part of your learning, it's part of your journey, but you can still choose to be a better me, right? You can still choose to do something different. You can still choose how you allow it interfere or impact you. One or the other. And I would say to you, in that case, you have to ask, how does this serve me? Because if you understand the importance of you truly, truly loving yourself and being in tune with your true self, when your true self means you can be truthful, and it doesn't mean that you have to be a pushover. It means that you can be powerful and you can be impactful, even in a quiet way. Even in a quiet way. You don't have to be loud, you don't have to be brash. When you understand your true power and who you are and what you stand for and what you can actually be, and I will say this to you, accept all the good that comes to you as a result of all the good that you're doing in life. Now, the key in that sentence also is all that you are doing in life. You can't just play this lip service. You got to do. If you were to be the best you can be, what would you be doing? Well, you're being the best you can be. So you can't just pay lip service. You've got to be involved. If you choose. I'm not telling you that's what you must do, but I'm going to suggest some things that I know have worked for me and many other people that I've gotten to work with over many, many years in this industry. And I accept it's not always going to be easy, but it is always a choice. So again, accept all the good that comes to you as a result of the good that you're doing in life. Now, here we go to the fantastic we. Okay. We actually is fantastic when it is realized as a team effort. But I think it can also be very generalized and can have a very subconscious negative effect that is usually taken out of society that most people use. Now, this is one thing I'm very conscious of this word actually when people use it, because when somebody says we, they're implicating you also. Okay, when anytime somebody uses the word we, they're implicating you as they be involved. And most people aren't even aware that they're implicating you when they use this word. And, again, most people, even those who are coaching or giving inspirational speeches, use this, in my opinion, incorrectly. And, for example, I have seen people on stage, and this is not a judgment, by the way. So but I just saying, because I'd love people to be conscious of this. When I see somebody say, "Oh well, we keep," yourself, we keep procrastinating and we keep making mistakes, and and they keep going on about, well, look, we tend to do things wrong, we tend to have this, and I'm going, no. When you say we, you don't mean me. So be careful how you use the word we. And this is something, honestly, I see this so much. It's how I believe it's having such a subconscious negative effect on people. And because even when they're listening to speakers, and sometimes I read them in books, in inspirational books, and it surprises me. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, right? But when somebody says, "Oh well, look, we could be in trouble," or we don't know what to do, I always say, when you say we, you don't mean me, because you can't. You can't. And unfortunately, when be careful what you ask for, but also be careful what you declare to the world, especially for those of you who are coaching. Be very conscious of this. And I've seen some of the greatest people in the world in this industry use this. Because if I'm going to sit here and say to you, well, you know what it's like, right? We keep making mistakes. We do procrastinate. Well, I'm planting a seed in your mind that that's okay, and we know that's not right. We know that's not. So when we use the word we again, we know that's not okay. And to me, that's a positive, because that's giving you a better choice. It's giving you a better thought, a stronger thought. Or if I say to you, listen, we can do this together. We will do this together. I much prefer that word we being used in that context. And I want to plant that seed. So you subconsciously take it on. We will progress. We will overcome any obstacle. We will make it happen. We will no longer procrastinate. We will find a way forward. We will do it together. I'm happy to be in that we. By all means, involve me in that we. So we got to be very conscious, because being conscious of our thoughts and making conscious thoughts will affect how you behave in a subconscious manner, and how because your subconscious mind is the one that works. That's the engine room. That's the one that's doing all the work. That stuff that's going on in the back that you are maybe not even being aware of. The things that you're picking up. So you got to think differently all of the time. You got to be very conscious of the I, the me, and the we, and how you're using them. Now, people go, you can't be that positive all the time. Why not? Who made that rule?
It's interesting, because even you bring you into it, so suddenly they're reflecting on you. If we want to release it, or start pulling in the words.
Yeah. And look, but as I said, it's impossible to talk to I, me, and the we unless I include you, right? Because you are involved.
When you talk about what's sort of coming up for me is the me is almost an internal language, an internal reflection. It's like, what does that mean to me? So it's like an internalizing, and the I is almost like an external. It's kind of going, it's reflecting through you and out. Does that make sense? That actually,
Yeah.
Depending on how someone puts it forward.
Well, you see, the I is kind of the choice that you make after you ask, is this good for me? Right? Because so if you say, okay, you dig in deep and you go internally, you got to say to yourself, okay, inside myself here, I have to find out, for me, is this good for me? Is this something that I want in my life? Is this good behavior for me? Is this a good reflection of me, and the reflection that I want the world to see me as? or a reflection of how I would like the world to accept me as. So you've got to go dig deep and ask that question, and that only I can ask the question of me, right? So when I ask me and I figure out for me how this works for me, then I can make a declaration to the world of what I intend to do. Right? So externally now I'm using the word I. I'm saying I will be the best me that I can be right now. Does this make sense? You know, so we got to think of how powerful we use those words and how we're thinking about when we think about me. I mean, you know, now this might sound egotistical, but I absolutely love me right now, and I'm quite comfortable in sharing that with you and sharing that with everybody, because I understand my true purpose. I understand who I am and what I stand for and why I'm here, and I believe in me, and I believe that I am making a difference in the world right now, just doing what I do. I'm not looking for proof, by the way. Now that's when you really get to know yourself. You don't need proof. When you accept, when you say to yourself that I am making a difference in this world. I'm not perfect. I'm close. But I know my intention every day. I love life. I love people. I love new things. I love exploring. I love learning. And I intend to continue loving life and people and learning and traveling and experiences. But I know on that journey, I'm going to make a difference. And I know I am making a difference right now. I believe in me. I believe in what I believe in. And I'm also open to conversation if people can, for whatever people can share and teach me. I'm consistently learning.
Can the I see the me, or are they just the same versions of different versions of the same thing?
And the I see to me. Well, again, you see, it depends on how you see it, really. You know, and like when you say, "Can the I see to me?" Well, of course it can, because otherwise they can't communicate, right? And can the me see the I? I'm sure they can too, because otherwise they can't communicate. So when I think about me and I think about me, then I'm now communicating the both. Whether they're the same thing or not, I'm not quite sure. Or maybe they're different explanations, terms that you use in order to explain or give an explanation of who you actually are. Maybe actually every word we're using here, Pete, if we really want to get philosophical here, because you would think about every word that we're using. Well, where's it really coming from? You know, where are all these thoughts? Where did they really come from? Where? And you know, but sometimes when people share a thought, you have to understand the feeling that goes with it. And where's that feeling coming from? Why do you feel good when you share some thoughts and feel a bit strange when you share others? Right now, again, you know, when you understand your true self. Now, I have found that most people, when they use that word I or me, when they get into sharing things, and there's an uncomfortable feeling. Usually the feeling, in my opinion, is the one I go with. I question, why am I getting that feeling? And I've also discovered that, unfortunately, for most people, that's an external impact. Again, it's because they worry about what other people think. And bearing in mind that most people don't understand this, and that's okay. It's not a judgment. It's okay. They don't understand it. We would love everybody to understand this, but it is what it is. So I have to ask myself, is it a feeling that I have based on I'm taking on board somebody else's belief? Or is it a feeling that it's a behavior that I'm uncomfortable with, that I'm not so sure is the right thing for me? So if I am not sure it's the right thing for me, then obviously the I and the me have to be communicating, right?
It does make sense, as you say, that the fact that they can reflect on each other. I mean, because I was toying with the ideas. I mean, could you go as basic as saying, in some shape or form, the I is the consciousness and the me is the subconscious?
You could. You could.
Could we?
But I want you to understand this. This is something really, really important for people to take on board. And this is so important that you've got to really think about your thoughts and your words, because whatever is expressed externally is impressed internally. This is really important here, right? Because whatever is expressed externally is impressed internally. So when I often say to people, think about the words you're using, because people say, oh, well, look, I just said that. No, it's not that simple. Because if you said something, you have to be thinking it. You got to think it before you can speak it. So you say, I don't think like that. I just said it. No, sorry. If you said it, you had to be thinking it. So you got to question, what are you thinking? Is this going to serve me? Or am I getting involved in the ego? Or am I getting involved in other people's opinions and other people's stuff? So whatever is expressed externally is impressed internally. So important that we really accept this and understand this. And how is that impacting your life? So give that some real thought. So I suppose then we want to really think about, what exactly do you know when you know yourself? So when I know myself, I know that everything I have is borrowed. I own nothing. This office I'm sitting in, yeah, my name might be on a piece of paper that says I own it, but I don't own this. The desk that I'm sitting at, I don't own it. This body that I am in, I don't own it. The people in my life, I don't own them. Everything I have is borrowed. This experience that I'm having in this life right now, in this body, is borrowed. Now, people can go, that's a bit deep, or that's a bit silly. Well, really, we all know one thing for sure, that someday I'm going to leave this body. And this is the one most prized possession that can commute everything, right? Can create everything that I want to create. That can, put the hand in the pocket to pay for the things that I believe I own. But this body is going to go. This is only borrowed. I gotta tell you, because I gotta tell you the truth, your body is only borrowed too. You have only got a loan of this life. Does it make sense to make it a really good one? And to think about how you can say and stand up and go, I am making a difference. I am the best version of me right now. And using the word I am in me in a positive way. And then say, we can do this together. We can move forward together. We can step up. We can do anything. And create a positive life, because now that you know yourself, you know that everything you have is borrowed. You can start living life on a soul level. Everything you have is borrowed. Did you hear that already? Just reminding you, just in case you didn't pick up on it. But everything you have is borrowed. Everything. So we can start connecting to life right now and start getting involved in life. So I said we can start connecting to life right now and starting getting involved in life. And we can make a bigger difference for most people. And you know what? That makes me feel wonderful.
For you to, the expression, everything I have is borrowed. So I is the president or the owner. So it's That makes I the purest form. And what would
Well,
we...
is it the owner? Because I doesn't own it if it's borrowed.
So where's it all coming from?
Right? So it comes from within. It comes from within. Everything comes from within. Everything. Now, you know, when you understand that, now that doesn't mean that you all have to be all as holy as Joe and you got to go out there and, you know, I mean that respectfully. I'm not going to suggest that everybody turns off the world today and starts meditating, right? Now, mind you, I do suggest you do. It could be a good help for you. But the reality is when we start looking at what's going on in our lives, you have to ask yourself, what am I in control of? Now, the I may be the power. Maybe that's the power, right? The I is the power. That's the strength that you can find in yourself. What am I in control of? What can I do today to make the better world for us so we can enjoy it better? So that's your control. That's your power. You can call it ego. It can be egotistical too, right? The I can be the ego if it's used in the wrong context, but it can be so powerful. If I choose, and I'm grateful that I chose to be outstanding, because I chose that. That's the power I took to do what I choose to do and to be the best version of me. But I had to make that decision first. Maybe it's the generator, the switch, the turn on switch. I don't know what you'd like to call it. But I had to make that decision for me so we can have a better life. I believe the same is true for you. You have to make the decision. So in this context, you would be using that word I. And I do it, by the way, because of how it makes me feel. It makes me feel incredible when I know I've made a difference. When I get up every single day and I know that I can do more and I have done something that has changed somebody's life. It makes me feel incredible. And I am okay with that. I actually love it. And I can say that not in an egotistical way, just because it's true. Can you? If not, maybe this is a good time to make a better choice. I mean that respectfully. I will live my life to the full. I will enjoy my life. Every bit of it, every moment of it. I will have fun. I will have laughs. I might be a bit cheeky sometimes. I will be empowering. I'm sure I will experience some sadness in my life too. But that's okay. And the reason I have to say that is because, you know, it could easily be misinterpreted. I'm saying that you guys got to be happy nonstop. There's a whole pile of different emotions that you must experience, and it's okay to experience all of them. But I know what I choose. I choose life. So, like, you're gonna understand that some of the benefits of self-knowledge. Right? Maybe it's obvious, but I'm going to give you in a nutshell a couple of reasons that you might want to know your own nature. Well, one, as we've already been discussing, is happiness. You'll be happier when you can express who you are. Expressing your desires will make it more likely that you will get what you want. When you choose happiness and you know that you can be happy, you'll have less inner conflict. When your outside actions are in accordance with your inside feelings and values, you will experience less inner conflict. This is really important that you understand that. Not only that, you'll make better decisions. When you know yourself, you are so able to make better choices about everything, from small decisions like what sweater or what top am I going to wear today, to to big decisions, right? Like which partner you're going to spend the rest of your life with, or She's what will I buy her for Christmas? But but the funny thing is, when you understand that self-knowledge, you'll have different guidelines. You'll have a lot of guidelines that you can apply to solve your simple problems or serious problems. It doesn't matter, because it creates a better decision making. It's so much easier. That's what I call mature reflection, right? It's so much easier to reflect a little bit more when you understand the benefits of self-knowledge and understand yourself and who I am. And in this case, as I said, it's difficult for me to talk about this without me talking about me in this case. And I know that that's why I can make some of the best decisions. I can make some of the best decisions. You also may find yourself that you have a lot more self-control. Right? When you know yourself, you understand what motivates you to resist the bad habits as well and develop good ones. You will have insights to know which values and goals will activate your willpower. So your self-control is something that you will have. And this is something that a lot of people tell me I don't have. I don't have great self-control. Really? Why would you tell yourself that lie? But again, you get that self-knowledge, you will understand, you will have more self-control, you will get to know yourself. You will resist the bad habits. You will easily say no. Amazing. I've had so many people go to me, why? Why would you say no? Because it's not for me. And people say, but it's a great opportunity. I've had so many people come with so many opportunities. It's a great opportunity. I appreciate that. It's a great opportunity for you. It's not for me. And that's okay. Because I know I have great insight into what values and goals will activate my willpower, which will drive me forward. I also know those that won't. The other side of it is when you get to know yourself, this is something that's, for me, is really important, and it's probably the basis of everything you do actually, is to get people to know themselves. Simply because in particular for one reason as well, which is having that resistance to social pressure. When you're grounded in your values and your preferences, you're less likely to say yes when you really want to say no. I've met so many people go, no, I'm not going. I'm going to say no. I'm not going to do that. Next thing, something's printing, they go, "Oh, okay, yes." And I go, why? Oh, because simply they don't know themselves. They don't know themselves just yet, or maybe they're battling with themselves, and they think, "Oh well, if I want to be a better person, I have to say yes to everybody." No, you don't. No, you don't. If it doesn't work for me, I don't do it. Now that sounds selfish, but I promise you it's not. And this is why it's so important that everybody understands this. That doesn't mean that I don't help people. By the way, that doesn't mean everything has to be in my favor. It's not always that way. Because sometimes, well, the reality is anything I do to help anybody is always in my favor. It's always in my favor. And the same will be true for you. It'll always be, anything you do like that will always be in your favor. So, um, the next thing you do is you'll end up having more tolerance and better understanding of others. Your awareness of your own struggles can help you empathize with other people too. Because when people come into this way of thinking, I've met a lot of people who say to themselves, and they've often said to me, I can't wait, bring on all these negative people. I'm pushing them away and going, no, it doesn't matter. You just learn to have better tolerance and better understanding. So you don't have to have that battle all the time you meet somebody negative or who just doesn't get it. You'll get a better understanding. And this is what happens when you start to get to know yourself. You'll have more pleasure in your life. Like being who you truly are helps you feel more alive and makes your experience of life richer, larger, and more exciting. You will have so much more pleasure in life. There's so much more fun that you'll have because you will recognize so much fun in almost everything that you do. Now, I don't believe that you need convincing that self-knowledge is worth having. I believe you know this. You have to choose. You got to say to yourself, is this for me? and you think about me, you got to ask yourself, is this for me? There are things you're going to have to consider when you start thinking about yourself. You're going to start thinking about your values, such as, helping others, being creative, your health, financial security, and so on. Right? These are guides to decision making and motivators for goals, for instance. Right? But research shows too, by the way, that just thinking or writing about your values can make it more likely that you will take healthy actions. Remember I said earlier about you are what you think. So if I choose to be the best I can be, then I have to think about my values and how I attach my values to how I think, what I say, what I write, and what I do. So when you get to know yourself and have that self-knowledge, you got to think about your values. And when you write them down and you speak your values and you end up taking more action, you're thinking about them more consistently and you think about them in a positive way. The motivation that's provided by worthwhile values can also keep you going even when you are tired. And there have been so many psychology experiments that have proved this. You can go and research them. Just think about it. See what I've done there? But just think about it. Because I promise you this, once you understand you have worthwhile values, they will keep you going even when you feel tired, even when you feel like giving in. You also need to have some interests, right? Interests that include your passion, your hobbies, and anything that draws your attention over a sustained period of time. To figure out your interests, you got to ask yourself these questions. What do you pay attention to? What are you curious about? And what concerns you? The focused mental state of being interested in something makes life vivid and may give you clues to your deepest passions. So what are you interested in? What are you paying attention to? What are you curious about? By the way, many people have built a career around deep interest in something. Right? So think about your interest and what you're passionate about. The next thing is your temperament, your inborn preferences. Do you restore your energy from being alone? Are you an introvert? Or from being with people? Are you an extrovert? Are you a planner or go with the flow type of person? Do you make decisions more on a basis of feelings or thoughts and facts? Do you prefer details or big ideas? Knowing the answers, by the way, to your temperament questions like these could help you gravitate towards situations in which you could flourish and also avoid situations in which you could wilt. So think about your temperament. In the past, I tried to go with the flow. I tried really hard to go with the flow. But to me, that just seems like it wasted a lot of time because it wasn't my personality. Going against my own personality turned out to be something daunting, and it was a huge task, and it wasn't really worth it. I tried to please everybody else. I tried to do what everybody else thought I should do. But the reality is, once I discovered my own self-knowledge and I chose not to go with the flow, I believe I'm doing what I love doing right now. You got to be thinking about your activities. You got to be thinking about them around the clock. Now, I'm not going to get really deep into biorhythms, but if you haven't checked out your biorhythms, that's BIO or HYTHMS. Yeah, I hope I spelled that right. Biorhythms. Check out, there's lots of different biorhythms calendars and calculators you can download for free. You'll be amazed when you get to understand your energy. And I generally, when I know if my energy is low, I'll check my biorhythms to see where I'm at because I don't want to make bad decisions. And bad decisions are usually made when your energy is at its lowest. You rarely make good decisions if you don't emotionally or physically or mentally are not operating at your best. So check out your biorhythms. So maybe are you a morning person or a night person, for example? What time of the day does your energy peak? If you follow your biorhythms and pay attention to your biorhythms, you'll see the times of the day. Just try it out. It's really interesting. I don't know if you've never tried it before, right? But if you schedule activities when you're at your best, you are respecting your innate biology. If you schedule the best activities for when you're at your best, or the biggest meetings when you got to make the best decisions, trust me, you generally get the best outcomes. So as I look back on my life, I realized I'm a morning person, by the way, right? I always was, even though I worked through the nights for many years, and I ran 24-hour businesses, and I've done all kinds of things. But I kind of am a morning person, and sometimes I'm a night person. It just depends on what I'm doing. But I, you know, I just love getting involved in life and understanding my biorhythms and how they work, and I like to make sure that as often as possible that I connect with people who have similar type biorhythms. Right, it's kind of important to my relationship, right? Because we get on better, and when sometimes we can see something that's not going in our favor, the energy is low. So, well, don't just check your biorhythms there. Then I know when to stay out of the way. Because it's all about me in that case, right? No, but again, you'll discover certain things that really work, and it's quite interesting. So I would say to you, just get on and experiment with them, and like you the next thing you got to understand is when you're getting that little bit of self-knowledge, is understanding what's your life mission, and what really are meaningful goals to you. Right. So, like, what have been the most meaningful events in your life? If you were to think about mature reflection again, you think about what have been the most meaningful events in your life. Now, this is a question I ask a lot of people. And some people say, they find it very meaningful to take care of family, and some people might find that again, for me, I got to tell you, I found it very meaningful when I spent a lot of time with my father, right, when he was sick, when he was unwell. Um, but I wasn't there when he died, and that was something that really affected me in a way. But it was very meaningful at the same time, you know. And I have a mission to be there for my family as much as I possibly can, and so I'm accomplishing that goal because it's meaningful to me, and it's my life mission, right, to be there for my family and to be there for people, to keep making a difference. And if you think about what were the most meaningful events of your life, you might find some clues to your hidden identity, to your career, maybe to your life satisfaction. Because when I look back at some of the most meaningful things in my life, they're always about how I've served other people and being there and turning up and showing up and being the best I can be in those moments. They're the most meaningful times of my life. Is it no wonder I do what I do now? And is it no wonder that this is going to be what I will do for the rest of my life and for all of my life? So you've got to ask yourself that question. What have been the most meaningful events of your life? Maybe then you discover clues to your hidden identity. Now, the other thing, you need to discover your strengths. I'm a big believer in this. Discover your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses. Discover your strengths. Play to your strengths. Strengths can include not only your abilities, skills, and talents, but also character strengths such as loyalty, respect, love, the love of learning, fairness, so much more. You can Google and find a huge list of character strengths if you want to find them. You can pick some ideas. But knowing your strengths is one of the foundations of self-confidence. And not being able to acknowledge your own superpowers could put you on the path to lower self-esteem. So find out your strengths. And you choose, when you discover your strengths, that you will play to your strengths. I play to my strengths. I choose to play to my strengths because I choose to be the best I can be and the best version of me right now. I choose to live life. Therefore, I choose to play to my strengths. Become a person who takes in the good, listening for compliments, noticing skills that could be clues to your strengths. Pay attention. For example, an acquaintance will tell you that they love the soothing sound of your voice, right? What would you do with that knowledge? Would you be embarrassed or bashful, or would you use it as a strength now that you have that knowledge? That is something that you are really good at. Likewise, knowing your weakness can help you be honest with yourself and others about what you're not good at. You might decide either to work on those weaknesses or try to make them a smaller part of your personal or professional life. I choose the latter. I suggest that you do too. Make them a smaller part of your personal and professional life, those weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. Be true to you. Even if you know that these signs that are there for you, it's hard to remain true to yourself because you're constantly changing, because society's values often conflict with your own. And there's author Gretchen Rubin says, "My first commandment is to be Gretchen. Yet it is very hard to know myself. I get so distracted by the way I wish I were, or the way I assume I am, that I lose sight of what's actually true." So for all of us, being yourself sounds easier than it actually is, but there are a few signposts. And when you've made a discovery of one of your signs, you'll feel that sense of excitement. Acting on self-knowledge will give you energy and save you energy. You will feel stronger because you no longer conform to how you should feel, think, or act. For example, I can't remember my relief, I think, or I can remember my relief when I realized I was an introvert. Could you believe that? Right? But it was so comforting that I was giving myself the gift of time and mature reflection without wondering if I was a freak of nature. That I actually allowed myself to reflect and think, what am I and what can I actually be? So I'm going to suggest to you is you pay attention to the aspects of your personality and then take note of what you notice. Take note of what you notice. And then your question, Pete?
It's probably more a reflection. Just something that really struck me there is almost, I didn't catch the exact wording, but it's along the lines of, a true listener almost cannot have an opinion, because if you're truly listening, to hear all the facts and all the beliefs and everything else, you can't have an opinion unless you sit down their entire lifetime. You can never. It's that crossover for me between the listening, the I, the me, the you, and how can you impress an opinion on someone else when you actually don't know where they're coming from? I don't know, it just resonated with me, that part.
I believe a true listener asks more questions. Because as a true listener, it's not about responding with an I know statement. Because do you really know when somebody's trying to share something with you? And are you just sharing your opinion? Now you may share your opinion based on personal experience, but you've got to ask yourself honestly, does the person who is sharing with you want your opinion? Or do they want you to support them in finding their own true self? I believe it's my mission actually, and what I do is to support people in finding their true self, finding their answer. And I like to believe that I tease it out of people. I rarely give advice. I make suggestions, but I rarely give advice. And I can only make suggestions based on what I am hearing and what I think might. And the suggestions I usually make usually prompt more thinking and more questions from the person who's sharing, so they can dig that little bit deeper and find the answer It's not for me to tell a person how they should feel and what they should be thinking. Sometimes I feel like it, but it's not for me to do that. I don't believe that's for anybody either. Everybody has to experience life themselves and understand themselves. And I do believe everybody is exceptional, everybody is amazing, and everybody deserves to feel that. And I don't accept or believe, and this is just my personal belief or opinion, that people should be miserable in life, should be going through pain and hardship in terms of how they feel about themselves. I don't believe anybody should accept that, because I know, in my opinion, I believe that everybody is exceptional, everybody is amazing, everybody is purposeful, everybody else is life, and everybody should be life. I also believe it's a choice.
Is an observation an opinion?
What do you think?
Going on that criteria, I think it has to be. It's kind of a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Well, you see, then it depends. Depends again on the context of the observation and how it's translated and how it's relayed back, right? Because an observation with judgment might be an opinion. An observation, as we've often discussed, as a mirror reflection, when it's played back to a person for them to see for themselves, then could be an amazing tool. So, you know, so we go through life observing, and we have to observe what's going on in life, and then we choose whether it's for me or not. Well, I choose whether what I observe when we go through life, whether what we are experiencing is good for me or not. Okay, and so if I observe something and I say, because I feel it's not good for me, then it's not right for me to actually give that opinion to you. But I can say, in my opinion, here's what I've seen, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Just like when you asked me the question, I asked you back, what do you think? Right? So an observation can be an opinion if it's an enforced observation. But an observation that brings up more questions, to me, can be a very powerful tool. Because it prompts more thinking. Just like when you asked me the question, I fired it back at you and I said, well, what do you think? And as I did, you looked up to the right and you started thinking, right? And therefore you searched for an answer. So therefore it was you looking in for that answer, you prompting yourself to search for the answer that would suit you best, not me telling you what you should think.
It's the me using you as a reflection for I.
Whatever you think.
I think we should all agree. Oh, it's fascinating when you get into it. And you said this, like, we talk 5,000 to 10,000 words an hour if we're talking, and yet the language, and it's just, this is almost the start of every sentence, how it can be, have a charge, a polarity, an intention, an innocence, it's a minefield, right? In a beautiful way.
Absolutely. And, you know, and look, for me, I just like to keep life simple. You know, I don't believe in overcomplicating anything personally. And I don't certainly, you know, again, when I do these talks here with you, my intention is to try and get it across as simple as I can possibly get it. So I translate it in a way that's understandable for everybody. And that's mainly me, by the way. Right. So, you know, but I don't believe in complicating anything. And if we complicate things, then it just creates more confusion. And therefore, most people say, I don't understand, so therefore I must be stupid. And all of a sudden they buy into another label, right? And, you know, so I want to try and explain things in the most simplistic way so we get an understanding. And yes, it's a minefield. It's a minefield. And as I said at the beginning of this could create multiples of debates if you decide to get into debate with it, right? But again, I believe the purpose of what we're doing here is to prompt people to think, just to think about how you use this language. And it's not just because you use a language, it's because you're thinking it. This is really important. It's not just a throwaway word, it's something you're thinking at the time you're thinking. So what's going on that's making you think that? What feeling is attached to what you're thinking when you use certain words? And to become, my goal is to make people conscious of the words they're using that can subconsciously affect how they behave and be oblivious to it. So part of what I do is to inform. I'm just here to inform. You got to choose what you want to take on board and how you take it on board and how you use it. Now, don't overthink this. The other thing I don't want people to do is go back and go, geez, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm panicking and start thinking about all the words and tripping themselves up. No, just become conscious. And when you say the word we, is this in a positive context or a negative context? Because if it's going to be negative, when you say we, you don't mean me, right? And if somebody is using that word we at you, you've got to say to yourself, honestly, when you say we, you don't mean me. Because if you're going to keep hearing this over and over and we focus on what we do in a negative way, then let me tell you, that thought is going to become your reality. So on the flip side, if you think about what we do in a positive way, that thought is going to also become your reality. I would suggest you choose that. But that's just my suggestion.
It gives a whole different respect, really, doesn't it, for even yourself?
Well, it's always about me, right? And this is really important that people get this when they understand. This is not when I say that, that's not in a selfish way or an egotistical way. But the same for you, it has to be all about you. Whatever you're delivering out of you has to be all about you. Has to be. Because, like, from me, anything I say is a reflection of me. Anything I do is a reflection of me, and it's how I will be accepted or recognized in the world. And again, so it has to be about me. Therefore, it has to be about you. Remembering again, whatever is expressed externally is impressed internally. So if I'm saying something, it has to be in here somewhere. And if I say it often enough, then let me tell you, it's going to be impressed in here deeper and deeper and deeper. And if it's impressed her deeper and deeper, and you start expressing it more, therefore, if you're impressing something that's not positive, even subconsciously, if you're not aware of this is why it's so important that we become aware of this. If you keep impressing it, and eventually you start blurting it all out, or you start behaving in a way that's not congruent to you. I've often asked people this. I know, Pete, you've never done this because you're perfect, but you probably know some people. You ever met somebody who expresses something, and after expressing it, they go, that was nonsense, but they still defend it? They just continually start defending it again, right? Because it's so impressed to have to get that nonsense out, and they don't want it anymore, and they're blurting it out. And something has happened, has got them to create that thought that they're taking deep inside themselves, that now, and maybe the thought or the belief is, okay, I have to stand my ground, even when they know they're wrong. Right?
What's that, the height of madness, is it? To do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. What's that saying? I can't remember now, but
yeah, the definition of madness. Yeah. Yeah. But just remember, whatever you're expressing externally is impressed internally. If you're frustrated or you're angry, if you're annoyed, well, what's going on? That's coming from inside. It's not coming. There may be external behaviors that have created that, but for them to have created, you had to have taken it in. Right? So you can choose to let it go. And this is where meditation comes in, to take that time, or to have quiet reflection or mature reflection. To just let it go and ask yourself, how is this serving me? And I choose to serve myself in better ways. I choose a better life. I choose to have better feelings than the feelings I've had. I choose life. I choose happiness. I choose to work towards my values. And if you keep choosing this and thinking this, then you're impressing it. And that's what you will do externally. That will show up. It shows up in everything you do, in everything you say, and how you behave. Trust me, it feels wonderful.
That song is well and truly jammed into my head now. The Opus Life is Life.
Life is life.
It's great, and it's great listening to it. It reflects in a lovely way. It just is.
And that's it. It just is. That's how simple, and that is how simple it is, Pete. It just is. Don't complicate it. It just is. It is what it is, and I am what I am. It just is. So on a final note, I would say to people, be you. Be the best that you can be. Use the words I, me, we in a positive manner. Your choice. I will stand there.
Thank you.
Thank you.